In every generation, one is chosen to enter a dimension very few have experienced. This is a time where mystery knocks at your door and desires to be known and revealed.
Transferring money from UK to India? At TransferGo, we make it affordable, secure, and fast. Register now at transfergo.co.uk and send money home, just like 1.3 million people who already do. Choose TransferGo.
not even specific to Ripple or to XRP's community, I think one of the things that will surprise us a year from now is that banks will be custodying digital assets directly. And I think right now we think about that and think, look, there's no way that's going to happen. They're too conservative. And I think what you're seeing is, two things happening. One is banks are seeing that a lot of money is being made by digital asset exchanges globally, and banks are profit motivated. The second, and as we've talked about up here, certainly Ross has made very clear, is regulatory clarity and regulatory frameworks enable banks and financial institutions to lean into these markets. And I think we will surprise ourselves by this time. And by the way, I'll also predict that it will be banks in the ASEAN markets where there is this regulatory clarity and there is a lot of progressive forward thinking. They'll be the first to actually allow for crypto assets custody in their accounts.
SEC rule on XRP, and when, if they will?
Wow. So both.
You got softballs.
So look, we don't comment on specific enforcement matters or whether matters are under review or dialogue. It would be inappropriate to do so. What I will say is on enforcement matters generally, there are a number of factors that go into the assessment of any remedial action. One of the matters that you think about is how much of the conduct occurred inside or outside of the United States, investor loss, those types of things. But I can't comment specifically on any action. And in terms of any particular product, I'm just not in a position to comment. But I appreciate sentiment underlying your question, which is understood.
Well, the switch from the old process to the new one. And in the agreement, it is set that the first group of banks will go into production starting from December 1st, and they will switch their own system on March 1st. And by September 2020, all the Italian banking sector, all the 200 banks, we are still counting, so this name can change, but we will have 200 nodes in Italy, one for each bank.
From now on, my drill instructors and I will be with you every day and everywhere that we go. I've told you what my drill instructors and I will do. From you, we demand the following. You will give 100% of yourselves at all times. Obey all orders quickly, willingly, and without question. Treat all Marines and recruits with courtesy and respect. You will not physically abuse or verbally threaten any Marine or recruit. Be completely honest in everything that you do. A Marine never lies, cheats, or compromises. Respect the rights and properties of others. A Marine never steals. You must work hard to strengthen your body. Be proud of yourself and the uniform you wear. Above all else, never quit or give up. For we, or for you, the challenge of recruit training. The opportunity to earn the title, United States Marine. Now ears! Open, sir! Ears! Open, sir! Eyeballs! Good, sir! I tell you to, and only when I tell you to, you will stand up and shake out your legs. Do you understand? Yes, sir! This time, stand up and shake out your legs. Aye, sir! This time, stand up and shake out your legs. Aye, sir! Ears! Open, sir! Eyeballs! Good, sir! When I say something, you will scream out the top of your lungs. Aye, aye, sir! Aye, sir! I tell you to, and only when I tell you to, your assignment is gonna power walk and stand on line in front of your gear. Do you understand? Yes, sir! This side, get all lined up. Aye, sir! This side, get all lined up. Aye, sir!
The big elephant in the room, given how Chairman Clayton's question ended earlier. Look, I, Brad Garlinghouse, believe it's very clear that XRP is not a security. I think there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. One of them, quite frankly, is in the hypothetical world, Ripple could shut down. Literally, I can fly back to California, send everybody home tomorrow, and there's 140 exchanges around the world that trade XRP, and XRP is going to keep trading. Now, do I think it's great that if one major player in the XRP ecosystem isn't playing? Yeah, that's not great. However, I think, and I was actually trying to pull some data on this morning, and I didn't get this. I think Coil is doing more XRP transactions per day right now than Ripple is. And the reason is that the Coil transactions are micro transactions. They're very, 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 very small payments. And so the volume is, much higher. So.
Disengage.
We feel like there's an opportunity to bring the system into the modern world or into the internet world, where today a Swift transaction can take days. You don't know for sure if that it's arrived. It's almost like a postcard. The only way you know is your friend says, hey, I received that. And I think in a world of the internet where people expect I can order an Uber and it shows up right away, a Gojek, what have you, these are the expectations people have with regard to how financial systems should work in the modern era.
Turbulence. Locked and floating. You can drop us anytime now. We'll catch you.
Right, initial damping's going off. Hold on, people. There's going to be a little bump.
around 3,000 different digital assets that trade on a daily basis now. I think, anytime there's a new market, there's a lot of people that run into that market and try to show that they can solve a problem, they can deliver a customer need. I have said publicly before that I think 99% of all crypto probably goes to zero. But there is that 1% where I think that is focused on solving a real problem for real customers and is able to do that at scale. And that's going to be game changing. And I think that's going to continue to grow significantly in the decades ahead. Well, I think probably the sell-off in XRP versus the sell-off in Ripple is a private company. We have our shareholders. It's you can't trade Ripple shares, so to speak. XRP, look, we pay attention over the long haul. I tell the employees I don't think about it on a 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months. Taking advantage of what digital assets can do to make transactions more efficient, I think is a journey we'll be on for a decade or two. I describe it as a marathon, and we're on kind of mile 2. So I don't think about the price of XRP in the short term. I think if we can enable XRP to be the most efficient, measured by speed of a transaction, the cost of a transaction, more and more people will use it. So nothing to be worried about. Nothing to be worried about when you take a look at this sell-off. I think there's going to continue to be volatility in crypto broadly, right? The whole market kind of moves together a little bit, and there's times when XRP has outperformed Bitcoin. There's times it's underperformed Bitcoin. But I think as you look at this as a long-term journey, I'm quite optimistic about where we see the whole market. There's a lot of bullish trends for the whole crypto ecosystem.
All right, I want combat seating. You know your places. Get those weapons stowed. Let's go. Come on, settle down, people. Lock them in, Hudson.
Get it on. No.
Okay, Bishop, let's go.
Roger.
Ready, man. Ready to get it on.
Go.
Stand by, cross-launch now. Relaunch autocycling.
Well, I think what's good is a number of people, obviously, in the crypto space, and certainly what Ripple has embraced, is this idea of how do we reduce friction, how do we reduce cost, how do we bring people who are unbanked or underbanked into the financial system. And so that's a vision we certainly embrace. And Facebook's effort to kind of go direct to consumer, I think, is one approach. The challenge is, I think, that all financial systems, all financial tools, they're built on trust. And with Facebook as the lead horse around Libra, I think it's fair to say, Facebook has really had a trust deficit based upon a lot of things that have happened to the company and the things they have done. So I think it's going to be hard for Libra to kind of, using that foundation of trust from Facebook, to get a lot of momentum. As you know well, there's a lot of regulatory scrutiny and questions that are still not yet answered. I think the good news is key people like Mark Zuckerberg have said they won't go live until those things are clarified. Ripple approaches the world is we're going to work with regulators. We're going to partner with them from the earliest stages. We've done that here in Singapore. We've done that around the world, and I think that has served us well in terms of building momentum across all of our customers.
clear. When we're talking crypto assets, in my mind, what I'm talking about is all the ICOs that are taking place.
We agree on that.
ICOs, Bitcoin itself. I mean, most of the users of Bitcoin these days seem to be ransomware and darknet places. So I wasn't particularly focused on XRP, which I'm sure you have under control. But if I look at the broader world of digital assets, I think it is a highly unregulated world. I had a guy at last week explain to me in Belgium who was working in China. His big business model was to put any type of assets, houses, planes, and ships on the blockchain and issue a token, a digital token for the ownership. He says that's great. That way you can sell your plane, you can sell your house without paying any taxes, without knowing anybody knowing who's the beneficial owner, etc. His whole business model was essentially regulatory arbitrage, etc. So that is a bit my. And if you listen to the libertarians, they're all like, well, this is great. We no longer have government involvement. People can take back their assets. And all I'm saying is, well, be careful. I mean, there's a reason governments get involved when value is around. That was more the point. In terms of your point about the exposure, maybe I do think that as cross-border payments get faster, as they become real-time, I think that whole issue of volatility will be solved as well. And I also have to say, a lot of the reason banks keep reserve and liquidity is also to be able to clear larger transactions. You really need that deep liquidity if you want to move large payments. Mostly is dollar, by the way, and that's why the dollar is so embedded in the global system at the end of the day. And yes, we can argue about the volatility of the dollar, but I think for most countries it's a safe haven rather than a source of sleepless nights. But of course, Uncle Sam can change that any time.
Just to be clear here, if there was more regulation, is crypto something that SWIFT would be more optimistic about, that you would be more optimistic about?
Our point of view has always been, listen, at the end of the day, we allow banks to move assets and money. And if banks, and I think you can even do that today, if you want to move something from a Bitcoin account to something else between banks, you can use the SWIFT system to do that. I mean, it's a simple message, account to account, and whether that account is denominated in dollars, euro, or Bitcoin, at the end of the day is agnostic to us. We would expect that the banks then stick with the regulation that applies to that one. Yeah.
And I have to get you a clear answer here. We won't be off stage until I do. Is there a current agreement or partnership in the works between your companies?
No. Not that I know.
Not that I know of.
Thank you. Gottfried, I'm going to give you one more question because you'll be stepping down in June. So can you talk a little bit about your outlook for SWIFT once you're gone? What do you expect will be a bit of your legacy, and then what's your hope going forward?
The legacy is always a dangerous thing. I think the legacy, for me, GPI is a big part of the legacy. I think it is transformational for correspondent banking. It really is the biggest change, at least in the 40 years that SWIFT has been, 45 years that SWIFT has been in existence, taking that to the next century, and under the hood, changing the whole technology stack from what it was 20, 30 years ago, mainframe, etc., towards cloud, APIs, containerization, all of that stuff. That will be a journey, again, because of the 10,000 banks. Changing our own technology is relatively easy. Getting all of the 10,000 banks to embrace it and make it interconnected will be a longer journey. I think that will really be, in my mind, a big part of the legacy, turning not just SWIFT, but the banking community as a whole, the transaction banking community, and bringing it into the next century with all of the technologies that we now have available. So that will be my legacy. In terms of what I'm going to do, I don't think it's very different from what was in the press. I'm going to take a few months to chill out. I'm passionate about payments. I always have been. Before I joined SWIFT, I was a consultant with McKinsey in the area of payments. So I envisioned what's called a portfolio life, which will be a combination of payments, fintech, research. I did some academia in between as well, so it will be a combination of that. But who knows?
Ripple is hiring.
The offer stands. I think we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.